Describe your career path to the University of Virginia job.
Hmm. It's been a long one. I know I'm relatively young, I think, relatively speaking, but I did pay my dues. And I think for me, one of the big keys was, and I know there are so many different paths you can go to make it in this business, but for me personally, I always felt like the biggest key was repetition and calling as many games as I possibly could. I had an opportunity to potentially try to position myself geographically where I wanted to be and maybe go that producer route. But for me, I always felt like I would rather be doing what I want to be doing, ultimately getting better at it and going wherever I have to go for that. I started out at a very small station in Colorado, which is where I'm from originally, and worked there for about a year. And I was doing everything. I mean, it's just like you hear. I was doing the sales. I was doing a show. I think the actual station was based out of a trailer, so it wasn't anything glamorous, but I got to call games and I broke in that way. And actually, I really did enjoy that year. I got to work up in Estes Park for half of it as well. But then from that point, I ended up moving on down to Texas, where I had a chance to do my first college broadcasts with Sam Houston State. And I got a chance there. I probably called more games in that job than I did at any point in my career, and probably showed the most improvement of any time at that point as well. I was doing the broadcast for both Sam Houston State's men's and women's basketball teams, for their football team. In addition, I was doing boys and girls high school basketball. I was doing high school football, and I was doing high school baseball. And shoot, I was even doing Little League baseball. I was doing everything there, and I was probably broadcasting more games than I was eating meals over the course of a week. But it was a growing experience, and ultimately I was at a station that lost the broadcast rights to that university. So it forced me to find another job. And I think some of these things are just completely out of your control. And I was a little bit on the outside looking in. I had a job, but I wanted to be doing college sports again. So I got an opportunity at just down the road at Texas Lutheran, a Division III. So ultimately I went from a Division I to a Division III at that time. Enjoyed my time immensely in Seguin, Texas, a small town just outside of San Antonio. But I was treated really well there and had a great time, and ultimately went from one border to the next. And this is where I say you got to be willing to go where the job is. I think you just have to have that willingness to follow the opportunity. And I went from the Rio Grande up to the Canadian border, where I worked at the University of Vermont for 3 years as the voice of their men's basketball team. I also did minor league baseball there for the Vermont Lake Monsters. And that led to this opportunity here at UVA. And this is kind of a funny story. And I'll mention John Chalesnik in this too, because I remember I got back from a vacation, and I had seen on STAA's website that the Virginia job was available. And I think I was late getting in on it because I had been on vacation. There were only maybe 2 days left to get your name in or something of that nature. But I remember saying to John, I said, do you think I should even bother? I thought, this is such a long shot. You know, these jobs, you got to know someone clearly, which I didn't have a contact here. And he said, yeah, of course, you got to just send something in. I mean, it's the kind of thing where if nothing less, you get on their radar. And for me, you know, next thing you know, I'm a finalist for the job, and I'm interviewing for a chance to be the voice of the Cavaliers. My big break that I ultimately got at you know, the BCS level here at a university in the ACC. So one of the good pieces of advice I ever got right there: don't hesitate. You never know what you're going to get. Again, I had no contacts here, and I'll ultimately just won it through interviews and hopefully the quality of my broadcasts.
When the talent is equal, what separates the guys who get the major college jobs from those who don't?
You know, I think that there's a number of things that play into it. And I honestly believe, obviously, there's some luck that is involved. I think you have to fit that mold of what that particular school is looking for at that time. You know, that's not to say that maybe I would have been successful at another job that was looking for a different type of personality. I think I happened to fit what they were after here at the University of Virginia at that time. My personality did, and I think that obviously the quality of your tape does make a difference. I mean, there's no underselling that. So I think guys need to, at some level, maintain hope, because I know it's tough out there. And you could think, boy, there's 300 people going for this job. How am I going to fit through? How am I going to find my way through? Well, if your tape sounds good enough, you're going to get noticed. I really firmly believe that. But all things being equal, you know, I had some great advice along the way. I think this is, and I'm going to ramble here for a moment, but we talk about some of the things that are important for young broadcasters. I think having good mentors makes a huge difference. And I was very fortunate to have 3 guys, really 4 people that impacted my career. Tom Hedrick at college, Larry Zimmer, who I grew up listening to with the Colorado Buffaloes and Denver Broncos and interned under, And then Gary Bender made a huge impact in my world once I graduated from college, and he's been there for me all the way through. So I got great advice from Gary and a guy by the name of Rob Levine, who kind of represented that executive side. He used to work for David Stern at the NBA front office, and he gave me tremendous advice in the interviewing process in knowing what kinds of things to be ready for in terms of questions. You got to be ready to sell yourself at a university level, not just as a play-by-play voice, but also be willing to be an ambassador for that university and do the other things that are necessary in that community. It's more than just a radio voice at these schools, and you have to make that part clear that you're willing to be a part of that, and that it's something that you feel like is important to you as well, being a part of the community, being a part of representing that university. So I think those are all keys to it. But again, there's just no substitute for good mentors and good advice that you can get along the way, particularly as a young guy. And I still turn to these guys.
So a couple of these mentors you worked with previously as an intern or in college, but how would you recommend someone go about finding good mentors?
I think you always need to be looking around, and I think sometimes it's as simple as I say contacts haven't made a difference in my life, but at the same time, okay, well, for Larry Zimmer, I met Larry Zimmer through an internship, so it was an opportunity to work with someone. I think those are the scenarios where you have to always be looking for that person that'll maybe take you under their wing, and I think all the experiences you can get trying to find internships increase your chances of finding that person that can make an impact in your career. I had a friend of the family, actually, Gary Bender ultimately was a friend of the family and happened to live just near where I did in Colorado at the time. And I went over there and just brought my tape and had him listen, and we connected right from the start. And I think you have to have that connection with this person, and it doesn't always happen that way. So it's not like you're going to give someone a tape and they're going to say, hey, I'm going to help you all the way through. It's got to be a situation where, for whatever reason, you do connect with this person believes in you. And but I think you have to find that. You have to go out there, and there are any number of ways you can do it. I mentioned Tom Hedrick was a professor of mine at college. I mean, any number of people can help you throughout your career. I met Rob Levine as an analyst for me at the University of Vermont. He ended up being he'd never done broadcasting, but he had just gotten out of the NBA, and we connected, and he kind of took me under his wing and shared a lot of his insights and knowledge as somebody who was hiring oftentimes in these positions for hiring broadcasters. So I think there are a lot of different avenues you can go. Those are some of the ways that I went about the process. And, but again, I think it's being out there, putting yourself out there and trying to network. But, don't be overbearing, because I promise you all these guys are very busy, and you don't want to push yourself on them to the point where you can turn them off. But be yourself and try to be tactful.